there's like a small mode, and then so you can like switch into small mode, or you
Uh-huh.
can do like auto mode. And so auto will just decide like once you get to a certain size to like hide the buttons, and then you can like start and stop just pressing this. But if you
Cool.
wanted to get like the buttons back, you can resize it or switch the modes and you get the buttons.
Okay, hello. Here I am today with Michael McGann, and Michael is a buddy of mine. Michael, can you tell me what you do on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah, so I'm at this program called Build Space for the SF2 program, and I'm working on this app called Get Link in Chat, which automates sending links to your followers on Instagram. So we launched like a couple weeks ago and got like 12 people signed up, and we sent like over 1,000 messages. So kind of gearing up to grow that. So excited.
Yeah, it's been so cool to see you go from zero to, your first 1,000 messages just in the past few weeks since I've known you. One thing that I'm kind of interested in though is like you seem like you write a lot of code, but you seem like I'm not sure how you learned or when you learned. Did you teach yourself?
Yeah, so in high school I took one programming like Java intro programming class, and
Uh-huh.
then we moved. I probably if we hadn't moved, I would have kept taking those classes, but then the school I went to didn't have it, so I stopped doing it. And then I went to college and I was studying like in high school the last few years I really liked economics, so I studied economics.
Oh,
And
cool.
economics, you had to do like a little bit of like stat stuff where you're using like programs that are not quite like Python, but similar-ish. And then over time, I just was using it like in my spare time to make apps, Python, and then I've learned a little bit of JavaScript, but still not very proficient at either.
And you've taught yourself Swift as well.
I mean, I would say I'd say in the last couple of years, I've gotten really proficient at using AI and
Uh-huh.
ChatGPT or Cursor to like write the code, and then I'm knowledgeable enough to usually be able to like read it and understand what's happening, or at a minimum like prompt it in a way that gets it to generate the right code. So, or
Very
in
cool.
general, the right code. Yeah.
So when was the first time that you made like a full stack app or like an app with a user interface?
That was probably in like 2016 where
Okay.
my company would have hackathons, and so I built an app. I can't remember what it did. I think it added it was like a repository of funny YouTube videos you could add to your away message, because I saw somebody do it at work and I thought it was really funny how they added like a funny YouTube video to their away message. And so I just was like, hey, I'll like find some good ones and then create a web app that you could find them. I mean, now it's like that would be so much easier to make. Like you could just use Google spreadsheets and stuff like that. But back then, that was like not as easy, or maybe culturally, it was like no code wasn't really a thing in the same way that it is now.
Cool, nice. So is Get Link in Chat the thing that you're most proud of?
I probably, yeah. I mean, it's like the first product I've built that like other people have like really actually used, not just people who were like testing it for me. This is like the first app that's like out in the wild generating value for real people, which is pretty cool. So
Yeah,
yeah.
congrats. And unfortunately, we're not here to talk about Get Link in Chat today. We're here to talk about another side project of yours, which I think will be really cool to see from your perspective as someone who's just learning how to make. And I actually don't even know how to make this. You're going to show us how to make an app for Oculus. I mean, sorry, you're going to show us how to make an app for Vision Pro.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, you're going to show us how to make an app for Vision Pro. And how did you come across the right resources and like how did you even learn how to do this?
Yeah, great question. So I was waiting for the app that I'm currently working on to get approved, and so I was kind of exploring other things I could do instead. And it was right around the time that the first Vision Pros were coming out, and there were like people in the office, playing around with them. I got to try one, and I was like, "Wow, this is really cool!" And there's just so much hype. I was thinking, okay, this feels similar to what it was like when the iPhone came out, and there's just like a lot of opportunity to create like an app in that space, and you pretty much can make any app, and it would be useful because there's some person who needs it and it doesn't exist yet. So I basically did what I said earlier is I was like, I went to ChatGPT and was like, hey, can you write a Swift app because I wanted to write it in Swift. I think I watched like maybe an hour video of like how to make apps in Swift, just like an overview of like what's different about it from making just a regular like iPad or iPhone app. And I would say that was kind of useful. Like it helped me, like it made me realize like one of the major differences is that like you now have like a screen and space, but then there's this concept of having like a 3D space app. I didn't use that, but like it's just very different from like when you're thinking about in general apps live in 2D, like compute like all Mac computer apps, all iPhone apps.
Mhm.
But then anything in Vision Pro or Vision OS or any of the other like Oculuses could theoretically have a 3D experience, which is like very different. But yeah, so how to get started, I really just like wrote down, and I can actually pull this up so I can show like some of how it worked. Let me scroll all the way back. Yeah, it took like a few hours to figure this all out, and it took a lot of like, I basically I wouldn't say like the first I just like asked ChatGPT to write it and it just worked. There was like a lot of iteration that had to happen mainly because ChatGPT was trained on Swift apps for like iPads and iPhones, and the actual like Vision OS like didn't exist in the last training. So you basically have to kind of like write an iPad app and then kind of edit it and figure out like how
Mhm.
to make it work in the Vision like in the Vision OS. So I kind of started really simple, as you can tell. I literally just said like write a Pomodoro app for Vision OS,
Mhm.
and then it kind of said like, okay, hey, this is going to be a Swift app, and it like even came up with other requirements of saying like, it's 25-minute length separated by short breaks, and so it like wrote out like, okay, you have to like import foundation. And then it wrote out like a function to start the timer, for example, created another function to pause the timer and a function to like reset the timer.
Yeah.
And then it created this Swift UI. And I think this is actually where like most of the issues come from because the Swift UI is like, or in this case, it was trained on Swift UI for iPhones and iPads, and you have to like make some changes for it to work in Vision OS. Otherwise, it just like looks wonky and doesn't like use the existing like Vision OS like native
Mhm.
stuff. But yeah, so this is like the initial view of the app, and then yeah, it even gave you examples of like how to test it, and then like other features you could add to it. And so I was like, I said add it all together because like it broke it out into separate pieces, and so then it put it together of like, okay, you have this foundation, you have this model object, which is the Pomodoro timer, and then you add in like all the functions that it put there, and then you created like the Swift UI. So kind of put it together. So I could just literally copy and paste this into Xcode. And oh yeah, so you'd have to create a new project.
Mhm.
Yeah, we could probably do that real quick just to show like the initial version versus like where it ended up.
Cool.
Let's create
I think it's at under file. Yeah.
a new project. Vision O. Yeah, so I guess yeah, if you're gonna create it like you create for Vision OS versus for another platform, you can create for multiple platforms too, but I think it's just easier right now to do for like one.
Yeah.
We'll create example Pomodoro app. Right. Yeah. All right. So this is like the default, basically like the default what it looks like. Yeah, it'll take a second to like prepare it. So that maybe we should wait because you can kind of see it. Content view. So you have this concept of like a scene, for example, and then you have your text, such as like "Hello World." Yeah, and I think this is like a something that comes out of Reality Kit, which is like the model like Earth thing. So you're not going to use Reality Kit, so we'll delete it in a little bit, but you can kind of get a sense of what that's used for. And then this is kind of interesting. Like none of the ChatGPT would never generate this because this must be newer. But like this syntax for generating a preview is really nice. So if you like remove this, then the preview goes away. So you like always want to keep that because it shows you what the app looks like.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So it'll take a second to rebuild, but while that's happening, I can grab stuff from ChatGPT and we can replace some of that. So I literally just clicked this copy code, and then I went to uh, this. Oh no, so this you keep. I created a new file. That's what I did. So I created a new file, and it's a Swift file. And then I think I called it whatever they said to call it here. Yeah. Pomodoro model Swift. Right. So it actually already imports the foundation for you. So that must be like a pretty common pattern. and I copied the code. Oh, sorry. I literally just did that. All right, so that's for the model. Then I went back to this content view. And I just copied this code. And I replaced this part. I didn't replace the preview because when you replace the preview, then you don't see it anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And
So now what you've done is you had like 3 files or so that you copied and pasted from ChatGPT into this project.
yeah, just 2 files actually. So it was
Wow.
this Pomodoro
Mhm.
model. So this is
Okay.
basically, you can think of this is like where the data is stored, and then the functions you want to apply to that data, which is usually like saying, hey, the like for example, this is starting it, so it's saying, okay, go ahead and like set the timer as running, and invalidate the existing timer, and yeah, you get kind of the idea. So it's just
This is,
storing some data about it.
this is the business.
Yes, exactly. And then this is the content view. And so this is basically saying like, hey, what should this like view look like? And I can zoom out a little bit so you can see it. So yeah, this is what it like will render. And so as you can tell, like it makes this like really hideous app that like has these like
Mhm.
weird looking buttons that don't look right. Um, yeah, so that's like basically it took me a few iterations with ChatGPT. So if you can see here, I kind of was like, okay, let's use like animations to show like the session progress. So I like took this and it says, hey, go update this, create this progress double. So I added it to the Pomodoro timer.
Mhm.
If you go to the model, I would like add this, for example, and then it was like go update the start timer function. That's this one. So I just literally copied and pasted and changed it like that. And then I went and go back to the content view and see like what it renders.
Mhm. Mhm.
Oh, actually forgot. I also need to add this content view. um, so yeah, I had to update this. So let's go ahead and update that before we have it render again.
So what is the Z dimension doing in your Pomodoro timer?
Yeah, I actually am not 100% sure why it's called Z stack.
Mhm.
Um, like I think effectively this is like horizontal versus
Okay.
vertical.
Oh, okay.
Um, but I don't know why they called Z. Maybe because in the future they want to have like there's like depth or something. Maybe.
Right. That's what I was
Um,
thinking. Cool.
yeah, but I didn't get that far. But yeah, so you can see like now it has this visual, so you can kind of like see it, but it's counting down in seconds,
Uh-huh.
which is kind of weird, and it like looks wonky, and the buttons and everything are still red. So I believe on the next one, that's when I kind of played around with like, oh, okay. So I also added like a break feature. So I think I added like all the features first,
Uh-huh.
and then I kind of like figure out how to make it look better. So yeah, so then this I added in the uh, timer mode. So there's like this, you can say it's work or break. So Pomodoro normally has like 25 minutes, and then you have like a break. So this is how I added that break section.
Cool. It's probably
Yeah.
fine if you want to skip to the last version.
Okay. Yeah. It might be worth though, like I did have to go through a bunch of like iterations to figure out like a bunch of other stuff. Like all of these are like more stuff. But yeah, so there's a bunch of stuff that I had to go through to get to where the final one is. But yeah, let's just show the final one. They had to do geometry stuff,
Oh, really?
model handling. Yeah. There was like a lot that went into like getting it there. But a lot of these were like I had to like redo it, like it didn't work the first time.
Right.
And like I had to play around with this. I think some of these I just fixed on my own too. Like I couldn't quite get it to work fully out of the box from ChatGPT.
Mhm.
But yeah, so let's show like the final product. I'm gonna close this, then open.
Cool.
It's looking good. Ah, here we go. All right. Yeah, and so this was the final app after quite a few more iterations, and I added a few more features and different stuff, and like cleaned up some of the code, so it's a little bit easier to work with. So there's obviously a little bit more code, but it's effectively the same thing while using kind of like the native buttons. This is also like you can resize it now. So if you want to make it look like different, you can also start it. It's doing it in minutes instead of seconds. You can pause it. You can reset it. Not, maybe you can't reset it.
So,
Um, I think you have to pause it and then like unpause. Oh no, it's just like frozen. That's what's going on.
uh-huh.
Okay, I think this might be simulator.
Could you show
How
us
to-
any parts of the code which are which would not exist on iOS but are special for Vision OS? Are there any?
Yeah. I'm actually not 100% sure if they're special. Let me
Mm-hmm.
find some though. Yeah, I think this concept of geometry is newer.
Uh-huh.
So I had to like figure this out.
Uh-huh.
So, oh, okay. It's working now. It's just real slow. But yeah, so this geometry reader, so it's basically like figuring out the geometry of like your app so that it can resize it appropriately. That
Mm-hmm.
might also exist in iPad, but I believe like how it's done in this is like unique to Vision OS since you can also have resizing done in like a third dimension.
Got it.
So it's unique, but it's like a similar, goodness
Right.
gracious. Sorry, it's just doing a bunch of stuff at once now that it's
So it's a responsive design.
yeah, so it's like it's effectively it's actually by default like kind of responsive, like with the H stacks and the V stacks
Mm-hmm.
or Z stacks, sorry. But certain things like weren't resizable, but like basically the circle was a big thing. So the circle wouldn't resize, but I made it so that the circle would resize and then the buttons would like appear and disappear based on like whether there was space for them or not.
Mm-hmm.
So the idea was that you could like if you want like this is like the full big view, but if you're like, hey, I just want to see the time somewhere,
Yeah.
um, I can. Oh gosh, it's really really unhappy right now. There's like a small mode, and then so you can like switch into small mode, or you
Uh-huh.
can do like auto mode, and so auto will just decide like once you get to a certain size to like hide the buttons, and then you can like start and stop just pressing this. But if you
Cool.
wanted to get like the buttons back, you can resize it or switch the modes, and you get the buttons. Then you can
And
like toggle the mode.
did you make use of this on the Vision Pro?
No, we like never got it. I figured out how to like what was blocking us from getting it set up on the Vision Pro. But yeah, I still want to do it at some point. Got to do that before I leave, before I'm away from a Vision OS. Also, it's kind of funny. I've always wanted to switch it. It's going like the opposite direction to what I would expect, but hey, it works. Um,
What's the trick to testing on the real device?
yeah, so it's supposed to be pretty straightforward actually. So you can like change it. Where did we find that? It was yeah, so you can like add an eligible device here, but and it can be done, it has to be done over Wi-Fi, which is unique because I think the iPhone and iPad you can do via like connecting to your computer.
Mm-hmm.
But certain Wi-Fi settings like don't let it happen. So you have to have certain settings like allowed in your Wi-Fi, and the build space Wi-Fi has that blocked. So we'd have to go to like we have to like get on a different Wi-Fi network
Okay.
for it to work. Yeah. Big thing is like it's not unique to it, but if you just kind of use like the default buttons, it does this like these nice like default buttons and the view modes, like all of these like out of the box just like look better if you just don't give them colors or try and like change how they look. So
Cool.
yeah,
So the default button on Vision OS will do that mouse over when you point your eyeball at it in real life.
exactly. Yeah, yeah. So you can see my mouse here. In theory, this would light up
Hmm.
um, when somebody puts their eyes on it. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, so like an example, something that I probably should add is like if this is clickable, I should make this like highlight in some way when you mouse over, but never got around to that. But yeah, these all naturally do that for you.
How long did the whole project take for you?
I would say like in different spurts, it probably took like 4 or 5 hours
Hmm.
of total time. And a fairly large portion of that was just like debugging and figuring out things that were unique about Vision OS and like how it does stuff. Because it's almost entirely the same. There's just like really small, like minimal things you have to like go read the docs to figure out right now. But eventually there'll be a model that's trained on, you know, the
Yeah.
recent docs and it'll be a lot better.
Do you have any other great ideas for Vision OS apps?
Other great ideas. I feel like any app where you can teach somebody something where like you want both of your hands to be free would be a great Vision OS app. So like an example, like cooking's a really good example. But then I think there's other things like if you were like learning how to knit or something,
Mm-hmm.
like being able to have it like recognize like what your hands are doing, for example, and then also like giving you instructions that you can like look up at without having to like,
True.
touch a button somewhere else. So anything where like you need both hands, I feel like would be a great Vision OS app, like teaching or learning or like giving you instructions on how to do something with both hands at the same time.
Cool. Well, yeah, this has been really, really helpful. I hope that some people will see it and realize that it's not too hard to get started.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, I think it's never been easier to start like making a product. There's so many like no code, low code things you can use, like even spreadsheets. You can make apps with spreadsheets. And then even if you do have to code, I mean, really, it's amazing what you can get done with like ChatGPT or these products that just help you write a little bit of code. And then it's also a great way to learn like some of the like I think I learned everything I've learned about coding in the last like 10 years has really been just by like trying to do things. And then AI can even help you figure out like putting code in and to explain what this code does. And it's like I think it's like the best way to learn any of these things is to like actually just make stuff. And then you'll like learn the thing you need to learn for the thing you want to make. And that's like, in my mind, the most fun way to learn anything. So,
Cool. Thanks a lot for your time.
yeah, absolutely. Hey, I'll see you later, James.